Hi, and welcome to Second Rate Film School. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Jacob.
Well, to quote the greatest movie of all time, Spider-Man, we're going back to formula with this one by doing a commentary for The Mummy Returns, possibly the most meh sequel of all time. There are some good things about it, some bad things about it. We'll get into it. We'll see what Jacob, being our control group of having only seen this movie one time, thinks of it as well compared to us fans of me and Jake. But, we'll get into that when we get into that.
Yeah, well, I think it's better than Meh, though. It's like a 7 out of 10 movie.
No, yeah. There are things I think
I think it's an 11 out of 10. This is like the coolest movie ever. And this is probably the best scene.
Yeah, there are things that it definitely does better and that live up to the original movie, but there are things that when I was rewatching it this week, I really thought about how it betrayed the first one, but we'll get into that. So here's the future president of the United States, The Rock.
It's back when he had hair.
Yeah.
I think this was his first ever film role.
It was.
Yeah. Well, it's actually interesting that he's, at the time it was just a wrestler, and I think it was just they were trying to get the wrestling fans to watch this movie as well, which, in the later Scorpion King movies, they actually do get some wrestlers in there, I believe. But this was like the height of trying to get wrestlers to become actors. You had, Hulk Hogan had a movie career for a while. Stone Cold Steve Austin was in a few movies. So it was very interesting they got him in this, but they didn't do much with him. He's only on screen as a human for like 3 minutes and then doesn't appear until a motion capture, monster until like the last 5 minutes of the movie. So it's very interesting that they picked him.
Well, like the wrestler turned actor thing. I mean, that's been a thing forever.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, But this, with Dwayne Johnson, it clearly did, but he went on to play very different kind of roles. He's playing like a supremely evil character here, but he became known for his very charismatic good guy roles.
Well, yeah, he was the bad guy in Doom. I mean, he was the human antagonist in that movie. I mean, he becomes a genocidal maniac, and then the movie's like, just kill all the women and children, fuck them. But yeah, he's very affable, I think.
Can you imagine if Doom came out now with Carl Urban and like Dwayne Johnson? That's like prestige casting. That was like the B-list cast back then, and now it's like, oh my God, we lose our minds over that.
When Rosamund Pike was in it too, she was.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that's right.
And then it just would be the same movie.
Yeah.
What a weird. I always thought like Doom had a really cool premise, like scientists accidentally opening a portal to hell, and like the movie isn't about that. And it's like, oh well, that was the one cool part about Doom, but
Now it's Carl Urban talking about if he's so smart, why is he so dead, and other jokes.
So apparently The Rock in this scene had food poisoning. Or across all these scenes.
He's retching.
Yeah. I mean, it works well. He looks like he's about to fucking die, so it's a happy coincidence, I guess.
I don't know. This movie is like perfect schlock for me. I've seen it one time and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Stuff like this, it's great.
Yeah. Could you imagine
that? This is like a perfect level of schlockiness for something like that. And you got the monsters. Yeah. I could tell this was an improvement right from the first scene.
Yeah,
well, that's like the Photoshop like CGI here.
That's the thing. That's what I love about this movie. Despite it not being as good as the first one, and I don't want to. Let's not keep saying that. Let's actually just try to talk about the film. It's. Despite all that, it's still a fun movie on its own terms, and I think it's because of the director, Steven Sommers. He still imbues a sense of fun.
Yeah, this one just goes for it. Like, some crazy stuff going on at the beginning here. And
it's very imaginative. Very imaginative.
Yeah, very much so.
Scooby-Doo CGI flies away there.
It does kind of look like the demons from the 2002 Scooby-Doo movie, actually. Now that you mention it.
Looks a little better. Maybe a little better.
Well, it's like that era of CGI where things had that sort of shiny plasticine look, but were also very over-animated. It's kind of how you can tell a lot of that early CGI. It's very over-animated.
Yeah, this definitely foreshadows to Van Helsing Summer's next movie.
which we will be doing next time. So stay tuned.
I can't fucking wait.
Because again, this is Stephen Sommers, our newest
Yeah.
month.
One day I want to watch all three of these back to back. Maybe I can do it now because I got the time.
Yeah. And then
Okay,
there's
so
the man, the
here's
myth, the legend.
Rick McCollum.
I don't think that's his last name.
That's funny. I got that.
Okay, good. I'm glad you laughed. Otherwise,
Very funny. Yeah, no, Rick O'Connell back again. I actually thought it was O'Connor for years. I don't know why I added the ER on it. But
So Ricky Ricotta.
Ricky Ricardo. Could you imagine if this was made in the 50s starring Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball? That'd be great.
yeah, I guess.
Mommy, you got some splaining to do.
There's a joke everybody's gonna get.
Yeah. And there's Scrappy Doo himself.
Okay, so this movie takes place. Did this take place in 1933? Is that right?
Yeah, it's in 1933.
Okay, so the first one took place in 27, I think.
Yeah,
So I think
believe.
Alex is like 8 or something. So I think the math is a little off, but
Yeah.
whatever.
It's one of those things where we were joking on the last commentary that's like he was actually Evie's son from a previous marriage, but Rick is really taking up the stepfather role. Now, here's one of our first bits of retconning, though, is adding on a tattoo that I guess was implied that he's had for a very long time. I don't think it was supposed to. I always implied he's had it virtually his entire life. That he didn't get in between movies, but it was clever. You don't see his wrist, I believe. I think he does have that leather strap on his wrist in all the scenes you would have seen it. So I will give him credit there that that's not one of the things that undermines the first movie.
No, I mean you just don't think about it until it brings attention to it in this movie.
The one thing I will say is we'll get to in a little bit is how Evie is the Pharaoh's daughter from the first one. So it's very weird that Imhotep thinks of her as Nux in the Moon instead of, oh, hey, it's my side piece's father's daughter. But my fan theory that is the mummy, if you remember in the first one, steals the guy who's half blind's eyes. So that's why I assume he is mistaken Evie for for Nux in the Moon in the first one. Why he doesn't do that again in this one, I'm not sure, but take that. I think I solved it.
Well, it's because the Nux in the Moon is pretty much reincarnated in this movie, right?
Well, yeah, she is, but it shows you they obviously weren't planning out that because when he sees Evie, he says a Nux in the Moon. So he clearly thinks she resembles her, even though we see in a few scenes that it's just her. You know, she was the reincarnated Pharaoh's daughter. So it's people have always pointed out. I've always just thought of it as he's fucking blind in the first one because he's got such shitty vision that because from the first guy who needed glasses, so he kind of just sees a vague shape that looks like an oxygen. I don't know why he doesn't do it in this one, but whatever. It works.
So it's all one misunderstanding.
Yeah, it's a comedic, like Three's Company-esque misunderstanding.
Well, okay, so one of these characters coming up, I think that guy, I can just tell by his crotch. I think he's in Van Helsing as the grave digger. And I don't know if I'm the only one who knows that in this commentary.
I know who you're referring to.
I'm not sure who that is.
Okay. Well, I'll point it out when we go to the Van Helsing commentary.
I'll put it up on
killed
screen. I'll put it up on screen if it is.
Can't wait.
Yeah, make sure to put the photo when it shows that crotch shot.
Yeah. No, and I know what you're talking about. He definitely does look like the guy.
No, I'm pretty sure it's him, actually. Yeah, the guy on the far left.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, I just want to remark that I like in this movie that Rick and Evie and they have a family now and everything. I like how it's evolved the story like that.
Yeah,
like
there's forward momentum there.
Yeah, it doesn't contrive some way where like they haven't spoken to each other in years, and they reunite, and then it's like the same dynamic plays out from the first movie. It actually evolves the relationship in a pretty cool direction. It's cool that they're still a family and everything. It's neat.
Yeah. Well, I think a nice touch is they now have Evie being a lot less afraid of shit. You know, she kicks this, I almost said squirrel, kicks the snake away. Like, she's not even afraid of it anymore. She's wearing much more utilitarian clothes to go do this shit. Now, I mean, yeah, they're still trying to make, you know, Rachel Wise dress sexy, but, you know, she's wearing, you know, pants now. You know, she's not like in the opening scenes where she's wearing a dress and all that. She's, you know, she's gotten down and dirty into the archaeology, where, as I mentioned in the first commentary, it felt to me like this was that was her first outing, that she was always trapped in the library and wasn't allowed to go do anything.
Yeah, now it's the logic is she's been with Rick for many years, so he's taught her a thing or two. Yeah, it's all visually communicated and in the performance too. Simple, but it gets across.
Yeah. That, and with all the leading Egyptologists being dead from the last movie, she doesn't have much competition now.
Yeah, that's true.
It's because she knocked all those shelves down. Now she doesn't have a job.
And why
my husband?
Well, there's like a reference to it too coming up, I think, with the son.
Yeah,
it's like a callback to the first one when he tips over everything.
Yeah,
it would have been great if they had a scene where they like go into a coffin or something, or like a sarcophagus, and there's a bunch of like mummy tombs or something, and they all open up, and there's a bunch of mummies coming out, and they freak out, and she accidentally knocks one over, and then in the exact same angle, tips over a bunch of the mummy sarcophaguses, and then it would have been a nice comic beat, and they could have run away. That's my contribution. All right, have a good night, guys. That's what I know about this movie.
Yeah.
No, what year did this come out? This came out in like 2001, right?
Yeah, spot on.
So this was neck to neck with Universal's Jurassic Park 3. So they had a great year this year.
Well, speaking of which, Joe Johnston was offered to direct. Oh no, the third one. He was offered to direct the third Mummy movie.
Oh, he would have done
a good job.
He's very underrated.
Yeah, just like Stephen Sommers.
No, this movie's there's a great variety. I like the variety of action sequences and everything in this. It's a lot of fun. I mean, like, you know, it's really silly, and I don't know how much there is to really like mine from it thematically or whatnot, but I've always enjoyed just how far this movie is willing to go with its limited 2000 CGI.
Well, it's kind of interesting you say that too, because the movie once again revisits the whole Egyptian mythology, and Imhotep comes back, but they still make it fresh. Usually I think this would have been kind of tired, but they actually like how they brought it about here. I mean, how Imhotep comes back and his function is not as effective as the last movie. We'll get into that later, but
yeah,
they still found a fresh way with the Scorpion King and everything. And
it's like the bad guy is like the Scorpion King in this. It's not just Imhotep again.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Imhotep almost gets relegated too. He's the bad guy for the first 2/3 of the movie, but then by like the third act, he's almost like the right hand man. Like, he's almost like the henchman you fight before you get to the main boss in the video game. So it is interesting from that angle.
It's like more of a supporting character is the sense I got from the one time I've watched this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll go into the detail that more. I think I might have a reason as to why it's not as effective. We'll back to what we said before.
Watching these again now with you guys, I almost sit around and I wonder, like, would it almost have been more successful if the Mummy reboot, instead of doing just a straight up reboot like they did with Tom Cruise, tried to do a Force Awakens type reboot with the son as the main character and kind of brought back this world and this whole version of the franchise? Would that have been more successful?
I think so.
I'm not saying it would have been a smash hit.
Yeah, I think they wanted it to be
better than what we got. I mean, I think it's not too difficult to make something better than what we got, but would it have been more successful commercially?
Absolutely.
I would be interested, and I'll put it up on screen, what the box office for the third Mummy and then Mummy 2017 were, to compare and contrast them. But even though the third Mummy didn't do as well, I think it had a much better impact and I agree, it has a bigger setup to have more success down the line. I think the main problem is Universal they're like, oh, we got to have it be fresh, blah, blah, blah. And they wanted to be set in the modern day, so they would have been trapped in like the 40s or, late 30s, early 40s at this point, and I think they wanted to have it be better. Now, maybe they could have done Captain America and have Rick be frozen and then brought back to life. Could you imagine?
But don't say that. I can, and that's.
But he still ages.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Okay. But
no, well, it's I mean, it's obvious that it's obvious that they wanted to do the shared universe thing. That was the line of thinking. But now, with that benefit of hindsight, you can almost look at that and be like, well, maybe just doing some sort of Force Awakens style reboot would have made you a little bit more money than trying and failing to emulate Marvel so hard.
Yeah. I mean, they could have made Tom Cruise Brendan Fraser's son. Go ahead.
They wouldn't have done that. Would have cast some like young female or something in like the lead role.
I was gonna say they could have made Tom Cruise Brendan Fraser's son. Like, what was it Brendan Fraser said in that one interview? The kid's like Tom Cruise these days.
Even though he's the same.
Yeah, I think they would have gotten some like.
I want to see it just because I want to see Brendan Fraser come back. He's so great in all these.
Oh, me too. I don't know how active he would have been in the plot.
You know.
He would have been like Han Solo.
I think he would have been as active as physically possible.
Well, because in this movie, was this the movie where he got injured? That affected his...
I think that was every movie he made in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Oh, so Encino Man, that was one of them too?
I think it was Looney Tunes.
Honestly, probably. No, I mean, he's a lot of fun. I guess, would they have brought Maria Bello back?
Yeah. No, Oh God, no! Actually, no. I was thinking for a fourth Mummy movie, but back to the third one. But I think they would have brought Rachel Weisz back.
I think they would have thrown enough money at her. With them trying to make it a shared universe.
I think they would have definitely.
I just hope they would bring them both back because the sort of husband-wife dynamic I think would be fun as they're older now.
Yeah, and I mean Maria Bello. We're never gonna do the second, third one. I have zero desire to watch that movie in whole completely. I've seen like the majority of it, but I have no desire to watch all of it. It's not good. They're fine chemistry wise, but they're nowhere near as good as Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. Like it's not good at all. Now, I mentioned briefly in our discussion with the first one, they were actually pretty good at not bringing dead characters back. Obviously, with Emotep being the exception. And then this is not a Nox in the Moon. She is just someone, and they really don't get into the background of who this woman is and why she is willing to sacrifice and essentially kill herself for no benefit. Because you never get the implication that she's been tricked into being, killing herself essentially. So Nox and Moon spirit can go into her body. I think they kind of just say she's reincarnated, so some maybe part of the soul's there. I don't know, but it is interesting they brought her back. But in a lesser movie, like I said in the previous one, they would have brought Benny back. They would have found some way to resurrect. They would have found his corpse and brought him back. And I'm glad they don't, even though Kevin J. O'Connor is hilarious in that movie. I'm glad they did not bring him back for this one.
Yeah,
or
they
any
brought back three scumbags.
Yeah, and they don't even do much in the movie. I mean, they're killed off pretty quickly.
Oh no, they're just they function to just get Imhotep's full form back. That's really all that they're there for. They're supposed to be unlikable, so they're very disposable characters.
Yeah. Here come the scarabs again.
This is cool. So this is where Imhotep was defeated at the end of the first one, right?
Yeah.
This is where they're digging? Okay.
Yeah. So they're like probably in some quarry in fucking northern
I guess
California
they didn't mention that when they were zoning the architect site here or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, there's some like mummy monster thing that is buried here 5 years ago.
But yeah.
Oh, there's Mr. Echo from Lost.
Yeah.
Any Lost fans get that reference?
I bet they were all really excited to see him here and couldn't wait to see where the show was going to go at this point in time.
Yeah. Well, yes.
I like
Oh,
how
this
like they
guy.
were digging in the complete wrong area. By the way, like that whole thing was inconsequential, and that's the last time you see the scarab beetles too. That was almost just like a throwaway. Like we have to bring back the scarab beetles because that
Well, that
served
made
no real
sense.
purpose. But it was
Perfect.
fun to see
Just
it.
have them in there briefly and then move on to new things.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it made sense there because that's where they were from the end of the first movie.
yeah. I mean, they were there, but it you didn't need to have it. I guess it just also shows how like little these people care. The main four bad guys here care about their like these people's livelihoods. To them, like they're that little importance to them. But so be it. It's still an interesting scene.
Oh yeah. Okay, that guy right there. I think he's supposed to be the curator of the British Museum in the movie.
Yeah,
But this guy right here, he's in Van Helsing too. He plays the cardinal who's the head of the order that Van Helsing works for.
yeah. And you were right. The guy on the right was the grave digger from Van Helsing.
Of course, I was. I know my Van Helsing.
Again, much like the original Universal movies, Stephen Summers reuses his cast a lot. Kevin J. O'Connor is actually Igor in that. I forgot.
That is true.
Yeah, but like if this was the original Universal monster movies, Stephen Sommers would have cast Brendan Fraser as the Scorpion King or something like that.
And then here is Ardith Bay in disguise again.
Yeah, I would say he does more in this movie than he does in the last movie.
Yeah,
kind of.
I should rephrase my opinion of when I said he gets sidelined. It's during the third act, and I guess that's the show like this Scorpion King's army rising. So he's not interacting with the main cast by that point. So that's what I meant in that. So I retract that statement. He gets sidelined a little bit in the third act, but he definitely does have more to do in the first two.
Well, he does lead the army.
Well, I mean, I'm just like saying he's like separated from the main action.
Okay. Sideline from the main characters. Okay.
Yeah. And that's almost like incidental because as we'll get into it, we see it looks like none of his men die because the Scorpion King's army is weak at that point, I guess is what they're saying, and they turn to sand immediately. But whatever. It's still an effective scene. So, but again, like we said, these two have great chemistry. We can't hear it right now, but the score is great for this scene. Like they have like a very nice theme that plays throughout all their romance scenes and all that. And it's, very nice to see them together. And you could tell that they are in love.
You mentioned the music. Alan Silvestri composed the score to this movie, and Jerry Goldsmith did the score to the last movie. But I honestly wouldn't know the difference.
Well.
I didn't realize Jerry Goldsmith did the last one.
Oh yeah, it's great. And it's not to say they're it's like homogenized or anything. Both are very distinguished, but
it feels like there's
they're both. They're both great composers, no doubt.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Jerry Goldsmith did the last one.
Yeah. I like how she just keeps referencing all the people that went looking for this, and they happen to have visual representations of them in the hallway as they're walking. So there's an Alexander the Great, Caesar, and then a portrait of Napoleon. It's very weird how you decorate your house for this. Oh, and here's Wayne Manor.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Which Wayne Manor is this?
In the Nolan movies.
Batman Begins. It's the one.
Oh, I thought it was in. It burns down. Batman Begins. Yeah.
Wasn't it back in The Dark Knight Rises?
Yeah, they go back, and it was reconstructed exactly to look the same because obviously they didn't burn it down.
I think it's a different location in Dark Knight Rises.
And I'll put it up on screen if I'm wrong or if we're wrong.
And I think the interiors to this scene, I think it's at Shepperton Studios.
Yeah. One of those things where it's like it's weird. Like you got permission to film outside the house because I know they do the same thing in Batman Begins where it's not the interior, and they did that in Back to the Future with Doc's 1950s house. They had to shoot somewhere else. So it's always very interesting that these mansions are always used, but we very rarely ever see the actual inside of the house.
Mm-hmm. So I read that this kid, he turned down to be in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone to be in this movie because The First Mummy is like one of his favorite movies.
I wonder who he would have been in the Harry Potter. Maybe Malfoy.
He looks like a Draco Malfoy.
I mean, he's a fine actor. I mean, I've jokingly referred to him as Scrappy. I make that comparison mainly like the let me at him type kid. But
I like this kid.
he
I
does a
like the
good
character.
job. Yeah, he's no
It's a nice
Malfoy.
combination of no, but the character I like. He's a nice combination of Rick and Evie.
Yeah, he's definitely like I said, joking aside with that, like he can be annoying at times, but like he's not like he doesn't derail.
Alex grunting.
What'd you say, Jacob?
This is what the subtitle said. Have I kissed you today? And then below, Alex grunting.
You find stuff like that when you watch the subtitles. And now they're gonna bang right there in the stairwell. And then here comes the best part of the movie. Now, it's actually interesting. I don't know if you guys ever watched the animated series, but Alex is like, again, like trying to set up with the third one, the main figure around it as well, because he still has the bracelet on him in the series. Like I haven't watched the whole series, so I don't know if like the second movie ever happened, but he gets this bracelet on him, and like it's leading to like a great treasure or something like that. So like they take heavy elements from this movie for the premise of it, So it was an interesting series. It was one of those
were
kids
the original
WB
characters
shows.
from these movies in the show?
Yeah, John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard and Smallville was the voice of Rick, and he did a pretty decent job. So, but it basically was a chase show. Like they would go from like location, like as we see in the movie. Like his bracelet would show where they have to go each week, and it was like essentially, I think, a treasure hunt, if I remember correctly. And they kind of have a half-assed Benny like character is the conniving henchman to the main mummy, or to Emotep, I should say.
I saw they had it on Peacock. That's why I was thinking of it recently.
We'll watch it.
I was trying to convince Andrew to do this over Peacock, but over the free subscription. So we would watch it, but we'd watch it with all the commercials. That's the ideal way to see this movie, right?
And then that would have been in the directions. Pause every 5 minutes. Pause your movie every 15 minutes. So for 5 minutes for us to do ad breaks.
No, refresh your Peacock until you have the same ad breaks as us.
So the funny thing is, Jonathan, everyone's changed except Jonathan in this movie. He's still the same character as he was in the first one, and that's okay. That's okay.
It's kind of fitting.
Yeah.
I love how like they think he like is Rick and knows all this shit. Like they're like waiting, like they're like, oh well, let's wait for Rick to be back. I like how she doesn't notice the big bulky thing on his arm underneath his coat. His arm's like double the size. This guy's a good henchman.
Yeah, Mr. Echo.
I mean, he obviously, the bad guys this time around don't have the conniving, weaselly comedic relief guy. Jonathan's the sole comedic relief, really, in this one. And then we get Izzy a little later on when they get in the hot air balloon. So it's interesting to see the bad guys actually have henchmen that are a threat this time. You never feel really, if it came down to like a fist fight between Rick and Benny, where they both had to fight fair, that like it was a danger. It's like, oh, as we'll see, like a potential actual danger for them to fight this guy.
He just catches the snake. Yeah. It's just one of the great things about this character. It's kind of the world of this movie.
And it's actually great because the bloopers of the movie have like multiple times where like you see like they throw the snake at it and Brendan Fraser wasn't catching it, or like catching it in a way that didn't look cool. So I want to know how many takes that they had to do.
Well, probably to the point where it nearly killed him.
It's like that scene in RoboCop where like they had to throw the keys at Peter Weller and they had to do it like for like 8 hours because he couldn't catch the keys in the RoboCop suit. Yeah, this is a great like fight scene, and it's like, as you said, Mr. Echo like is here, but he's actually not getting involved yet. I think that's also a good way to show how badass and menacing he is, and to save for the final climactic fight between him and Ardith Bay, like how dangerous of a fighter he actually is.
Yeah, he's obviously structured. They're probably saving him.
Yeah, I mean, we get a little bit of the fight now, and you can see that Ardith Bay is getting like his ass handed to him, but yeah, it's very good. Knock the bookcase over again. This is a good fight scene. We don't have much to say about it, evidently. um, so, are you guys there? Did I lose you? Is this like the Phantom?
No,
Oh.
Watch the meeting's running out.
Okay.
No, we're trying to
Yeah.
message in the group chat.
Yeah, I saw that. I was gonna write that.
Sorry.
Yeah, our Zoom meeting is running out, so we're gonna be pausing this and have to do a little editing on this one. I like how we just missed it, but Jonathan was hiding in the fucking bathtub. It's a very Jonathan thing to do.
Yeah, once again, he hasn't changed. He's still a coward.
Yeah.
That's the fun of the character. He's a supporting character, so he doesn't need to really change that much if the point of the character is that he's static.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even though he's cowardly, he'll still do like the right thing. You could tell he wasn't hiding, being like, "I hope they kill my family and leave me alone." It's just like, I don't know where to fucking go right now. I need someone to help me. But
Oh, you mean so he wasn't like Shaggy in the Scooby Doo movie,
yeah,
where he said just fuck his friends?
I'd love that. It's so against character for Shaggy in reality, but it's such a fucking funny line when he says that. Say, let's hit the monsters, Fred and Velma. Could you imagine if Matthew Lillard starred in this?
He would definitely be Ardith Bay.
Now I'm thinking like we're in an alternate dimension where Brendan Fraser played Shaggy in those movies and Matthew Lillard played Rick in these movies.
That would be a very different. That would be one masculine Shaggy.
Like Zoinks.
I'm sure he'd do his best. He'd be a great Fred.
Actually, you're right. He would be. And I know they want to try and get this off.
Bad for this kid now. Whenever I see him, because I'm like, oh, The Mummy was his favorite movie, and he lost out on this huge paycheck from Harry Potter. Probably kicking himself now.
Oh, God.
Good for you. You followed your dream of being in the sequel to The Mummy.
Yeah, I can respect that. Even I know it's a kid, but hey, he clearly loves the first movie. He picked it based on that.
I know, like they say, we have to go there and keep the Scorpion King from wiping out the world, so that's why they actually get involved more than just having to keep the bracelet away. But I think the humane thing to do is not take your son on this risking adventure. They should have cut his arm off to get the bracelet off. Be like, I'm sorry. Could you imagine Rick be like, "I'm sorry, son." He's just crying as he's hacking through his son's arm. He's crying more. He's crying more than Alex is. That would have been great.
I'm sure Brendan Fraser would have sold that too.
Yeah. I'm sorry, son. Chop, chop. I'm so sorry. I love that guy.
You got to get Jonathan to do it.
Yeah. He misses and chops off his other arm by mistake.
Just a comedy of errors.
Just mutilating a child. I like how Rick has all these guns in the back of his car, just ready to go at any given moment.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's just the character.
He's ready for everything.
Yeah.
What I
He's really
love,
big with the NRA.
yeah,
That's just
he has a line coming up when they're overlooking the balcony of like seeing the ceremony. It's like, a few years ago this would have been weird to me. That's like he's now actively prepared for everything. Like I bet like in every cabinet in that house there's a bunch of guns. He spent the majority of the fortune that they made from the last one buying guns, is what I'm trying to say. They bought the house and guns, nothing else.
They did pretty well.
Yeah. So now we're where the Ark of the Covenant is being stored.
Area 51.
yeah.
I always thought this did look very much like that, so I wonder how much of that was, well, you're in the back storage room of a museum, so there would be naturally a lot of crates, or I wonder how much of that was a homage as well.
To what? Sorry.
So I said this is where the Ark of the Covenant is being kept, so I wonder how much of that was an homage versus, well, you're in the storage room of a museum, so there would be a lot of crates.
It's possible.
I like here in a second when they resurrect Emotep. Apparently, the spell is so powerful it resurrects all the other mummies in the. I know they need the mummies to like chase them, but like I think that should have been like Emotep, like in the first one, resurrects those mummies versus the spell has a very wide arc. I'm now just thinking of Return of the Living Dead, like when the gas just brings everything back to life, like models, like anatomy models and shit. It's great.
Listen, boy, if you want this job.
All right, so we're now back. We're about to see Emotep. It's actually interesting. I always thought it was very weird how he's like borderline encased in amber here, going back to the whole, this came out the same year as Jurassic Park 3. I know it's supposed to be whatever goo he fell in the end of the first one. I guess they wanted to keep him a little hidden. It's also interesting how he regenerates a little bit as soon as they bring him back to life. He doesn't look
I like this early 2000s CGI.
Yeah.
You got this creepy mummy character, and he's just like running around and acting all like spontaneous and like energetic, and it's just because like the CGI at the time made everything look so over animated.
Maybe that's why they had him regenerate completely. They're like, we don't want to keep paying for this.
It's like kind of interesting because it's like you talk about like artifice and special effects, and it's like you compare it to animatronics, and animatronics, at least in my experience, tend to be a lot more under emotive or under I don't want to use the word animated, but they don't move as much. They will move less than a live person will or a CGI creation will, but there's a sort of tangibility to it too by the fact that it does exist.
Mm-hmm.
Here the motion is a lot more fluid and vivid and allows for more detail, but then obviously you have the trade-off of it not being there, and that removes some of that tangibility. But it's interesting to me looking at like old CGI. Kind of, I always think of the troll from the original Harry Potter movie.
Yeah.
That was a very example of early over animated sort of CGI, how it had a lot of motion to it, and it was impressive at the time certainly, but in retrospect you can sort of make those observations, and it's the same thing with a lot of the CGI in this movie.
So
it's a good observation. Never really thought of it like that before.
Yeah. Show how menacing he is. Right. And again, going back to how like Jonathan hasn't changed. You could clearly tell he's only invested in this story because of how
Yeah.
because of how much like the diamond is worth.
Yeah, that's his goal. He's fixated on the diamond now. It pays off later.
Yeah. It's also very funny because, not funny, but that had nothing to do with the transition I wanted to do. But going back to what we were talking about, how this is a Nox in the Moon, like they even said, you're just her in body, not in spirit. It would be very interesting to see. That was a missed opportunity they could have done. Why is this woman so invested in helping out when she's effectively going to be killed to resurrect a Nox in the Moon? Like, what does she get out of this deal by doing that? She's still a very interesting character, showing how evil she is. But like, what does she get other than we need to resurrect a Nox in the Moon from this?
Does she just like worship him, or
That's the thing they really don't get into. I mean, I think what it could have shown how menacing the villains were, that they could have had a scene at the beginning of this with her just being like a poor villager that the curator and all the henchmen kidnap, knowing that she is the resurrected form, and then they force her to have the resurrection performed on her against her will, or they bring her on a little later on as Emotep finds her. I don't know. That could have been interesting. I think that would have fixed the problem. I mean, it didn't bother me as much as a kid. This is only me having seen this movie a couple dozen times, wondering that. Again, Brendan Fraser is great in this. The mummy confronts him. It's like you think it's like there's going to be this like silent moment where he's like, "It's you as well," but he's like, "Nope, just to fire a fucking shotgun at you." It's great. This would have made a great stunt show at Universal. Like, I'm sad they never did anything with this.
Yeah, well, I mean, they built the roller coaster.
I know, but like it could have been like this logically should have been what replaced Waterworld. Like they could have rebuilt the set a little bit, and then
logically, Waterworld should never be replaced.
It's a great show, but it's one of those things. Every time I go to Universal, it's like, oh, should we go to the Waterworld stunt show? I just pause for a second. I'm like, I can't believe it's now 2020, and you can still not now because it's closed, but down. But like when this reopens in 2045, what?
Did they replace it with something?
No, but I'm like saying like it's weird that you could just keep saying, oh, I'm gonna go to the Waterworld stunt show. It's a great stunt show. If you ever go to Universal, I highly recommend it. But it's just one of those things where it's very clear it was expensive to build, and they didn't have anything to replace it with yet. But who knows? I like that moment, by the way. These guys don't use doors.
Well, I think the reason they keep that Waterworld stunt show is because they're still paying off the budget.
Probably. But like I said, just redecorate it a little bit, and it's the money.
To the Dennis Hopper estate every year, and that's how they raise it.
It is a great stunt show. I'll give them that. Like, I think 99% of the people who go see that have never seen that movie, but they still enjoy it.
Well, that's sad.
It's not as bad as people say. Maybe we'll do a comment one day.
Oh no, I'm just saying it's sad how people have seen the stunt show, not the movie. Yeah. Makes sense. It's not a bad movie's okay.
I mean, yeah,
I don't know if I want to do a commentary on Waterworld. I don't feel as passionate about that.
Probably did not leave the largest cultural footprint. So
it's very interesting that it's like, yeah, you're right. Part of it's they're fucking paying off the budget of that movie, but it's also they have nothing to replace it with.
Well, we're gonna do a commentary for The Postman. Stay tuned. Movie's 3 hours.
We're gonna do the Kevin.
We're gonna do a Dennis Hopper marathon. We're gonna do Waterworld and then River's Edge.
Hey, we already did Super Mario Brothers, so we're partway through his filmography.
Dennis Hopper does make a cameo in this movie.
Does he?
Yeah, he's one of the mummies.
Wow.
Because he's so old.
You're really on it today.
Yeah, I know. I wrote that one down.
Yeah.
That's Jake's one note for the entire thing. When we get to the 40-minute mark, I got to make this Dennis Hopper joke.
Yes.
In a scene with no mummies.
I planned it since last week.
And going back to what I said,
my screen is wicked lagging, so I'm watching it. I'm like, so are they just fighting on a train? Oh no, there's a mummy there. Okay. I'm watching the slideshow right now.
Yeah, me too. Oh, it's coming back.
Oh yeah, no, look at that. It's like we said the magic words.
This is
Oh,
like
so I
the
guess you had to
phantom
move the
commentary.
mouse.
Yeah, this is like the phantom commentary for the two of you guys. I know what's going on, but you guys don't. I love he's about to, if I remember correctly, he's about to like do a Three Stooges thing with this mummy, like poking in the
You
eyes.
see, I think I'm like because this like has a pretty light tone to it also, but I think it's more acceptable here because the movie is just so like silly. I kind of like it. You know,
Yeah,
I understand we're delving into personal taste here, but you know, you got like a double decker bus exploding through London while there's like cartoons on mummies trying to grab Brendan Fraser and throwing him up and down. It's
yeah.
fun. It's like very very silly, but in a way that I appreciate it in a schlocky way.
Yeah. Now
It's well done too.
it'd be really unfortunate if I played an audio clip from the last one here of Jacob saying, "I wish they went more horror than action with the first one."
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm kind of trying to bring us back to that because there it's like more of a straightforward movie, and like I wish they did the same thing with this too. I wish it was more horror based, but like stuff is so over the top in this film, like the Scorpion King with his army and just some of the like the mummy antics that it's like I appreciate this in like a schlocky way.
No, I'm joking. I agree with you. I mean, they're like doing like almost like a bad breath joke here with the mummy, like doing that with him. And, like, yeah, they literally did the Three Stooges eye poke here. That's like right out of Army of Darkness.
Yeah, and like in an ideal world, this would be like a scary adventure film, but it's like a very fun, silly film that unintentionally goes more over the top than I imagine they probably were expecting it to, and that kind of makes it more interesting.
Yeah. I mean, they literally just did like a Wile E. Coyote mummy stuck to the side of the thing, which is also interesting that not all these mummies are dead. So like, are like some poor London cops having to try and fight mummies now? I like to think so.
This is the James Bond shot.
So apparently for this scene, they had to close down the bridge for. At first, it was 20 minutes, but then once I think they were being threatened or something, they had to close it down to 10-minute intervals.
Yeah, because people were pissed off.
Oh yeah, the traffic was too
I
bad.
love like you hear about that. Yeah, and going back to like the joking line, because like this is my first bus ride. Um, but yeah, there was a movie called like On the Beach where they do the same thing. Like it's a post-apocalyptic movie made in the 50s, and they wanted to show the Golden Gate Bridge completely empty, and the city of San Francisco said absolutely not. Are we shutting this down? So the director just bribed two police officers to be at either end of the bridge to just stop traffic for like a half hour.
Huh.
That's my somewhat connected note to it, but yeah, you can see like why like people be pissed off because they have to have the bridge completely fucking clear. How many times do they have to raise this bridge up for this scene? So it's like then like okay, now you're even slowing that part down. Like I imagine a lot of people pissed off about this.
Well, it was worth it.
Yeah, it's a great action set piece. Because as a kid, I didn't know it was a drawbridge, so I'm like, what is that mummy magic that's doing that? No, I wasn't that stupid, but I did not realize that.
That was Egyptian technology doing that. They were very ahead of their time.
Yeah. And again, goes to show, he's very good and very earnest. Like when he says Alex, very sadly, you could tell like the anguish of like a father, like realizing he failed to protect his sons. I think it's a good moment.
Yeah, sets up the goal for the rest of the movie.
No,
At least one of them.
I do say, going into when I said I think this is a downgrade to a certain extent. When the mummy is resurrected here, he immediately is like, "What year is it?" Which he doesn't do in the first one. And when they say it's the year of the Scorpion, he's super excited about killing the Scorpion King to like take over the army and take over the world and all that. And it's very interesting that they don't show that this proto Anaxinamun is there with him. So I always thought that was a bit of betrayal from his character from the last one, where all he cares about is resurrecting his girlfriend. I think had they done it a little out of order, where they show she's there, and then they're like, by the way, it's the year of the Scorpion, and then that's his second. Now he's like, oh, my goal's been achieved to have my girlfriend back. Oh, and now I can go do this, I think that would have worked a little bit better. But I think they kind of going to what we say that he's almost a side antagonist in this by the end. Like they kind of simplify him a little too much. But they do make up at the end, and I will point out what moment I think saves this movie 100% for me as well.
100%, you said?
Yeah, any grievance I have with what they do with Emotep is saved by the very end, and I'll point that out and discuss why. So, well, 4 months later now that they're in Egypt, I guess.
Yeah, they went by sea.
It's like, okay, well, you know, I think don't they say like we have to be there by the end of the week? It's like I feel like you can't do all this traveling in the 1930s in less than a week.
Well, the Scorpion King's resurrected. It's over.
Oh shit!
Don't you know, guys? He's back.
Off screen.
They get there. They find Alex's corpse. He's been dead for like 2 weeks at this point. Like, oh yeah, it was only a week. Yeah. Now it's funny. By the way, they got the Book of the Dead. Going back to our discussion about if the 2017 Mummy had been like a soft reboot, Force Awakens style, would have worked better. Partway through that movie, when Tom Cruise is fighting with Dr. Jekyll, they're in a library and he hits him with a book, and it is the Book of the Dead. So I wonder how much of was that a nod, or were they just a nod to the Stephen Sommers movies, or were they planning in future Mummy sequels to retroactively connect them? So we'll never know now.
I don't think they were planning anything. I just think they thought, hey, that people remember that.
I think it was an Easter egg.
Yeah, because it lingered a little bit on it, if I recall
Not
correctly.
like setting anything up, but just like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of those pointless Easter eggs. It's like the one in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Just those utterly pointless ones, like when you see Doc Ock's tentacles or the Vulture's wings.
I, at the risk of sounding like I'm defending that movie, that was setting up future movies in a very, very blatant way. I think with something like that, it might have just been more of an Easter egg sort of thing with the Mummy.
Yeah, but at the same time, yeah, I guess.
Oh,
yeah.
Wait. The prop you're referring to, Andrew, was that a thing from this movie that they stuck in there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Mummy franchise, because it's the same.
It was like something from one of these movies that they put in the new one.
Yeah, so it's
like that was
not
probably like an Easter egg.
Yeah, I wonder.
The Spider-Man thing, that was like the next movie is gonna have these guys in it, but both are bad. So I mean, I don't know what we're defending here.
Yeah. I like also somehow they were able to get the same mask he uses in the first movie to disguise himself when he's all fucked up. But there you go. Nice. And I like how he mind fucks this child so he could like understand what he's saying, because I guess we don't want to read subtitles or force a child actor to have to try to speak ancient Egyptian.
It's Dr. Doom.
Oh, a little bit.
He looks better than any of the movie Dr. Dooms.
Except the Roger Corman Dr. Doom.
You know what's really weird? I was watching an episode of Farscape last night, and it had the same plot as this movie.
What? Really?
It was
go on.
Gauntlet. It was a gauntlet that got like stuck on people's arms that would like they had to get it off and would turn them aggressive and cause all these bad things. So basically what I'm saying is this whole thing is just a rip-off of an episode of Farscape that I watched while falling asleep last night.
Well, I want to know if Alex is going to get pissed off and snap his fingers and erase everyone, so did the Avengers rip this off? Could you imagine? I said, is Alex going to snap his fingers with the gauntlet and like erase half of all life? So did the Avengers rip this off?
Well, it didn't, because it didn't happen.
Oh, look, he's even got Dr. Doom's face.
Yeah, and it looks better here.
I do have to say, before we see this trio of bad guys be dispatched, I always thought this like shorter, heavy-set one and then the tall, skinny one who was in Van Helsing, they always reminded me of the henchman from Hunchback, from 101 Dalmatians. I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's a reference to it. But then there's the third guy, so who knows? So I wish the live action cast of 101 Dalmatians Henchmen of Mr. Weasley and Hugh Laurie were cast for this.
Could you imagine?
Yeah,
Was
Hugh
Mr.
Laurie's in for
Weasley
2
the other
minutes.
one?
Yeah,
Wow, I didn't realize that. What's that guy?
Ah,
I'm blanking it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love how they trick the bad guys here into opening things.
yeah, they just get all this out of the way. I like it. There's no dilly-dallying around repeating the same from the first movie.
Yeah, I mean, part of me
We
was
know the rules.
Yeah.
Get it
Part
out
of
of the way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wish they could, set up a better goal for Imhotep in the sequel.
Yeah.
This is all well and good. It's just okay afterwards. We know his function, I guess, is to go up against the Scorpion King, but I wish there was a little more to it than that. Like
Well,
he's got everything he wants already, and that's the problem I was going to go into, where the things that he wanted from the first movie he already has, which is fine. You don't want to do the same thing again, but I wish there was a better goal for him that gives him more of just a better function within the plot. Because for the rest of the movie, he's a little passive until he gets to the Scorpion King.
Yeah, he
Which is
really
the
does
problem.
nothing.
That's kind of the problem. I mean, because with the first one, obviously his goal, he's a man in love, like we discussed last time. He wants to reincarnate on Aksunamun Moon through Rachel Wise. So he has that goal and everything, and that's what he's trying to achieve. But here, the goal's over now.
I mean, that's the thing. It's he wants love in the first one, power in the second one, and like I said, I think my big problem is in the first one, that's all he cares about is her. But in this one, before he sees he has the new Anox in the Moon to have with him, he's immediately like Scorpion King centric. So it's like it really undermined him at the beginning of his thing. So I don't know. That's just always been something, like I said, I've thought about after the 50th time I've watched this movie.
And it's fine if so his goal is that he wants power. Like again, tell me the whole thing, what he wants out of the Scorpion King again.
I mean, he wants the power. He wants to have the army and now take over the world, which you're right. He now has a Noxamoon. So, okay, what's the next logical thing for him to want? Okay, maybe he wants power now. My thing just was, I think they should have, shown him a Nox in the Moon first, and then, he moves to that because it felt like a betrayal of what he originally wanted.
Yeah. Yes, it does. I mean, I don't mind going with the power thing. It just execute it a bit better. Don't make him so passive.
Yeah. Well, that's
and I will say, maybe it isn't as interesting from the last movie where he was a man in love. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely gets dumbed down here, but like I said, there's the moment at the end of the movie that we'll get into that when we get into that, where he it becomes very, it very much redeems all the character flaws and changing they do in this one for him.
Mm-hmm.
I also like this borderline Mel Brooksian joke they're about to do with him with the fake eye patch. And that's not even a Mel Brooksian joke. That literally is one of his jokes. They do that in I think it's Robin Hood Men in Tights when they had the Hangman, who is also in Blazing Saddles, does that. He lifts his eye patch and it was just for show.
It's great. It's a great little character detail of this character.
Yeah. Well, now that we don't have Benny, it's a nice another little comedic side character to have, a little bit more funny jokes with. It's like I like that. He's like, I know I'm gonna get shot now.
Yeah, that's a cool thing in a Steven Sommers. He likes his comedic side characters, which is fine. Just an interesting observation because Kevin J. Anderson, Kevin J. O'Connor. I'm thinking of these other writers. Kevin J. O'Connor is like the comedic sidekick in Deep Rising. He's Benny in The Mummy. You have the easy character in this movie. You have Carl in Van Helsing.
Yeah, well, and he, even though he's not to the same level, he is somewhat comedic in as Igor, because Kevin J. O'Connor plays him as well. There are a few funny moments with Igor as well, so
yeah,
he's got them spread around. And they work very well. We're talking in the last one, Jonathan and Benny compared to, and now Izzy compared to Riley in the National Treasure movies. They do a very good job with them here that they never feel too forced. It does feel like, okay, I'm never like, who's making jokes like this in this moment. Like the characters are serious when they need to be serious, but like they can make funny jokes when the tensions aren't there.
Yeah. Plus, Izzy's just part of the expansion of this world, and it shows just another part of Rick's past life and everything, which is cool. So it expands Rick's world too at the same time through his past.
I want to, going back to our comparisons of him being like Indiana Jones, it's like we get the impression that this isn't the first time. Obviously he didn't fight supernatural forces prior to the first one, but like, he just had like a life of adventure. He was in the French Foreign Legion at one point. We don't need to know why. He was in something that involved this Izzy guy, beforehand. Don't exactly know what it was, but that's not important. We know, like with Indiana Jones, he knows all these people. We accept that they get traded around for what we're needed.
Yeah, it's very simple for a very simplistic character, and that's all that you need for a movie like this.
Yeah.
Hang all that simple stuff on great action and special effects.
Another behind the scenes moment here. I like there's a moment coming up when Evie has her flashback again to her past life, and she almost falls off the airship, and Rick catches her. One of the funniest bloopers I've ever seen is when they did that one time, and one of the takes they did that, Brendan Fraser wasn't fast enough, and she did fall off, like, of course, like a foot off the ground. There's like a pad below it, but he's like, "Oh no, Evie, I'm sorry." And that would be me, just like not only half-ass paying attention, just like, wait, oh shit, I didn't catch her. Oops.
Well, I guess she died earlier than she was supposed to.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I love how he, for some reason, is bringing this with him, even though it makes zero sense for him to actually bring it with him, but it becomes so important to the plot later on.
Oh, the scepter.
Yeah. Wait, did we lose you, Jacob?
No, I'm here.
Okay, it looked like you fizzed out on my side. I wasn't sure.
Oh, no, I'm here.
Again, goes to show who has seen the movie 55 times each, and the person who's only watched it once, I guess. It's like when we did Bionicle.
Yeah, but that movie was 60 minutes long.
Don't worry, we'll do the second one eventually.
We're not even halfway through this yet. I don't know what else to tell you. I like it. It's very schlocky in a fun way. I'm just waiting for The Rock to show up as the scorpion monster, even though I've seen it online a bunch of times.
It's very much going to be like with the Phantom review where I had nothing to say and I kept cutting out, so I just kept splicing in me saying, I agree, every now and then. Just Jacob will interject with that every now and then.
Well, the difference between that and this is we actually all have something to say, not in the first 10 minutes.
Speak for yourselves.
Yeah, okay.
You have a little bit more to say than the Phantom. This is a great part. By the way, I like this moment. It's like, perfect aim. No, I missed. Again, showing he's a dickhead.
It's a nice little character thing.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I'm getting like elements of, did you guys read that short story, The Ransom of Red Chief? Did you guys have to read that in grade school?
No.
It was by O. Henry, and it was like these two bumbling crooks kidnapped this little kid who was like Alex's age, and like he likes pretending he's like a Native American, so he calls himself Red Chief, and he just starts tormenting them to the point that they try giving the son back to the kid's father, but the father, knowing how much of a piece of shit the kid is like, oh no, you're gonna have to pay me to take him back, and it's just a comedic short story, and that's what this kid reminds me of.
Sorry for literary reference.
Sorry for referencing something from like 100 years ago.
Oh,
I mean,
wait, you read books?
Yeah, in grade school I did.
Oh, okay.
Reading.
We can't have any literary references. Yeah. It's not allowed.
Yeah. So I read somewhere that Stephen Summers, to make this look even grosser, was the one, he spread his own shit on the walls here to make it authentic.
Uh-huh.
I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah, that sounds like bullshit.
No, it's Stephen Summers shit.
No pun intended.
No, I think I did read like some. He was the one who like whatever they used, like chocolate or mud or paint or whatever. I think I vaguely remember reading that like he was the one who made some of the stains himself. He's like, no, it's got to look. He like it wasn't gross enough for his liking. I'm also reminded of like the climax or not climax. Partway through Catch Me If You Can when Leonardo DiCaprio does the same thing to escape the FBI on a plane.
Okay, so Steven Spielberg ripped off The Mummy Returns. I think we can settle that fact now.
Yeah, this came out the year before Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, that and Wayfair. Those are facts.
The website.
Wayfair.
Hold on, Shinzon's on screen. Let's be quiet.
What, these stormtroopers? Get it? Because they're bad at aiming. Well, imagine that during the stunt show. That would have been great. This should have
You
been.
mean a
During
tall
the
bald
literal
man?
stuff.
No, but like, yeah, like the henchman getting thrown through the air. That would have been great.
Are they ever going to upgrade the? If they upgrade it and turn it into a mummy stunt show, I hope it's the 2017 Mummy.
Well, that's the thing. They've missed the mark.
They recreate the sounds from the broken trailer.
Oh god. But yeah, they've already missed the mark on the '90s Mummy. Now that's no longer relevant. And it's actually funny that up until when the 2017 Mummy was coming out at Universal Hollywood, as you're exiting the roller coaster, they had figures from the Mummy 3, and it says like the Mummy 3, and you could clearly tell like where they like painted over coming like 2010 or like whatever it was. But they for years were just like still having figures promoting that. Universal doesn't know when to update shit, I guess.
I have a funny story to tell about the Mummy ride. So I think I was like 14 or something, and the line for it was like 2 hours long. So the first time I was ever going to ride the Mummy ride. So my dad and I, we get into the ride, and then the ride just stops before it even begins. So we're there for like 10, 15 minutes, just sitting there, all of us. And then the lights go on, and then the ride starts. So we're going through this roller coaster, but the entire place is lit up, so we can see everything. It looked like we could see all the gags coming at us. It looked like we were in some giant stadium or something. You could see the concrete floor. You could just see everything, and it was just really awful.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
the
that was
thing.
my experience with the Mummy ride.
Was that in Orlando or Hollywood?
That's a funny story.
Yeah, that was Orlando.
The Hollywood one, I've never been to the Florida version, but the Hollywood one I know is like a little dumbed down. I always find it very fun because you're riding through it and you're in pitch blackness, but you occasionally will pass by neon signs of just like statues or just plywood probably of mummies looking like they're swinging at you. And I've always thought every time I love that ride, but anytime I'm on it, I always think of that cliche scene that you see in movies where a character is walking down like a black void and you just like see like they're like on a drunken bender. You just like see the sides for like various different bars floating above them. So that's why I just assume we're like Rick O'Connell on a bender going through Egypt just with mummies attacking him every now and then.
Well, that's pretty much what happened to me on the ride, but just imagine everything, just seeing it from 100 yards away coming at you.
That had to be terrible.
It really was, but it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I never went on the ride after that.
The first time I ever actually was on it, and I think, Jacob, you were with me because it was when we were out in LA for school together.
I like the Florida one. The Florida one I remember being a little bit longer and more had a little bit more to it.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Universal Hollywood in a nutshell. That's a little stripped down.
That's so ironic, though. You would think the Hollywood one would have their shit together more.
Well, because they don't have the room for the space. I mean, when they did the Transformers ride, they fucking ended up having to tear down the original Paris Opera House set from the original 1925 Phantom of the Opera. Like they're very limited on space there.
I love that Transformers ride because Michael Bay directed it himself, and you can tell because the first thing that happens is when Bumblebee appears, he grabs a robot and rips its like robot jugular out with like robot blood.
It's great.
Yeah, I'm like, that's the Michael Bay Transformers universe right there.
Yeah. But Jacob, I'm not sure if you remember this. I'm pretty sure you were on the ride with me. some guy like who was sitting in the row behind us, and like if you've never ridden the ride, you're like in a Jeep. It's very similar to the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland. So you're in a Jeep, and you have the restraints on you, so you can't really move at all. And all of a sudden, I just heard this guy sniffing behind me, and he's like, "Excuse me, young man, what type of cologne are you wearing?" And like I tell him what cologne I'm wearing, and I hear his wife murmuring to him, "It's like I told you to stop doing that." He's like, "What? I just wanted to know what kind of cologne he's wearing. It's not that weird for me to ask him." And that was my first time riding the Mummy ride. So weird.
But it
guy.
worked though.
Yeah, weird guy. If you're listening to
Wearing
this,
cologne on the Mummy ride.
I don't know like why I put it on. Just like sometimes I put cologne on when I go out. I don't know. But yeah, I decided to waste a little bit of my Tim McGraw cologne to go to Universal that day.
So you got all dolled up for the Mummy ride?
Apparently.
So I'm just trying to imagine a man just going around all day just asking people about their cologne.
Well, that's what it sounded like when his wife was like, "I told you to stop doing this." Like, it's apparently a reoccurring theme for him.
They got a divorce a month later.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there.
That vacation was trying to save their marriage. I do admit I do like the very Back to the Future 2-esque going back to the first movie from a different angle. Even though like I brought up the whole why does he not recognize her as the Pharaoh's daughter, it is nice seeing what leads up to like what causes the guards to go looking there at that time. Why is the Pharaoh going to search and all that? So I do kind of like this retconning of the first one to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's fine. Again, it deepens the mythology of it all.
Again, I'm just remembering when you said that Arnold Vosloo had a slight paunch when they began production of this movie. It's like I'm just imagining like Arnold Vosloo with like a beer belly in this scene. Yeah, that was the scene there. I was a few scenes off, but like apparently he didn't catch her, so it's like, oh no.
That's what injured Brendan Fraser.
So that it fucked her back up too. She didn't want to do it ever again.
His body was other incidents. That was his soul.
Yeah.
So this is the same actor playing okay.
And like I said, I've always gotten it now that she is dead, and then Anaxina Moon's spirit is now in her body. So the original lady is gone. That's what I got like when we saw like in the original Mummy as well. That Rachel Weisz was going to be completely killed. This isn't like Get Out where she's partially still there. So it's like I wish we would have known like what was that first chick's motive? Like why is she like, oh yeah, go ahead guys, I'm on for plan destroying the world and then not even being alive to enjoy it. But
oh wait a minute, so I guess I was wrong. Anaxina Moon came back just now then. She wasn't there the whole time.
Well, as they said, you're Anaxina Moon. You should say, I'm Anaxina Moon reincarnated. And he says, yes, in body, but not in soul, but we will soon change that. So that's where I think it should have been before that, where it's like she's just like, they shouldn't have had her in this at all, or they should have had her up until this point, or it was done at the beginning where she's just some poor villager in Egypt somewhere that they kidnap and forcibly do this to her, or explain it at the very least, or explain that like she's a follower of Imhotep. She, like they could have retconned it, like she was there like during the first attack, in the first movie and all that. She's like, I've always praised you. I'll do anything to sacrifice myself. I just feel like you don't get that feeling very much with this one.
Maybe they could have just resurrected Imhotep and Anaxina Moon in that museum scene.
Yeah, I mean, her body was there. So, but
plus they died in the same place at the end of the first one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely something weird. But again, I didn't think about that, Jacob. You can chime in as this being the second time you're watching this. If you've ever thought that, I think I'm just viewing this now more as a 26-year-old who's seen this movie 1,000 times since I was 10. Noticing it now. He shrugged, people.
Jacob approves.
I agree.
Jacob, if you read the script, would you give it a recommend?
Well, you know, the tricky thing is, no, probably not. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have that much to say on that. Sorry, guys.
It's okay.
It's an action thing, and a lot of it's based on the visuals and stuff like that. So you got to take that into consideration when you're reading the script.
All right, so yeah, so I like the little scavenger hunt they're doing. You know how again it shows how clever Kyle, Alex, how clever Alex is with leaving his little. I refuse to believe he built that sandcastle, by the way, but leaving like the his trail of clothes. So I'm imagining like if there were a few more steps, he'd be naked by the time this ended. He's like getting really embarrassed, but leaving like the clues and all that. Very clever.
Yeah, it's a cool way to get around the question of, how do they find them, know where they're going?
Exactly.
Yeah, just it's a good way to show how clever the son Alex is.
Yeah.
He's not an annoying brat.
Oh, for sure. They could have very easily made him into that. Like, I jokingly said, "Oh, it's a scrappy dude." They could have very easily made him annoying, but it goes into he's a good
he was
actor.
fine in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Good
I
kid
think
actor.
Stephen Sommers said he jokingly said this, but when asked why there was such a large amount of time between movies, he joked so he wouldn't have to work with babies.
I mean, sure, and that's the thing. I think another problem with the third one. I know they were trying to set up for the kid, grown up Alex to be the main character going forward. That was like a passing of the torch series, part of the series. But I think he's the perfect age here. He's precocious. He's a kid, so he's not really able to handle himself, but he's old enough that he's able to do something. So it's like I think this 8 to 10 to 12-year-old like range is like the perfect thing for like a kid in this type of movie.
Andrew's talking about directing the actor, not just the character.
Yeah. well, that's a tricky thing in terms of like the age of like a young person in these movies, because if they're too old, it may not be right. If they're the right age, it's like dangerous enough, and if they're a little too old, the danger's taken away a bit.
Yeah,
I feel like. But if it's a kid like this, yeah, like you said, he's precocious, he's smart enough, but he's still vulnerable.
Yeah, like
so you still understand the stakes.
He could very easily die at any given moment. He has no way of actually physically defending himself.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the other elemental with his face in it attacking. Got Hydro Man here, I guess.
Hey, Red.
This is a great part.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I've heard people complain about this movie. Is, you're just redoing what you did in the first one, but water and stuff. It's like, I still think it's good. I mean, it's a power we know he has. So I think instead of people being like, oh well, why is he reusing his same power? It's like I would more think, why wouldn't you use the same power again? Like at your disposal. If you can do this, why wouldn't you? So I
always reminds me of the face, the screaming face from The Wall, from Pink Floyd The Wall, whenever I see one of these shots in these movies.
See, as a Blair Witch Project fan, I always just think of the like poster for the second one, which was like a face screaming. I don't think it's a character from any of the movie, but like made of wood, because get it, that movie's set in the woods. I'll put it up on screen and then show it to you guys later. So just take my word for it now.
On one hand, it's good that they're pushing special effects like this, because if you don't have something like this, it's I mean, maybe someone would have come along eventually to do it, but it's good to gauge these things in terms of just how far you can go. Even like something like as controversial as like Tarkin and Rogue One.
I agree with that.
The quality of the CGI is good, but at the same time, it's like, you have to kind of take these chances in order to know where you can go with these things. Otherwise, it's all theoretical, and you don't end up pushing it.
I don't even think the effects are bad here. I think it's just really silly more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, that's the thing, because at the time, water was like the most difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's been a thing for a long time. I remember video games struggled with that for many years.
Yeah, and I think they do a good enough job, and then they combine like the physical set thing that they're on, dumping real water over those. I think it pulled it off well enough. So okay, now we're in the Oasis that the Scorpion King got. I do like how they, going back to when we were joking about the beginning of the movie, passing by the visual representations of Napoleon, Caesar, and Alexander the Great. That this is a well-known mythical thing that people have been looking for centuries. It's very much like Hymenoptera, but a little bit more concrete evidence for it, less concrete evidence for it. So it's this feels like this could have been an Indiana Jones thing. We're looking for this lost city that Alexander the Great could not find.
Wait, what's the city called again?
They just played it. It's like an oasis, and then I guess it's right where the Scorpion King him and his men were walking through the desert and then found that scorpion there, and then that was the oasis that sprung up around him.
So is this Egyptian mythology?
It's still Egyptian mythology. I think they're still somewhere in Egypt.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I
Even
like
though
that.
There's no year of the scorpion in the Egypt calendar, but details.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I want to bring up here, where I'm glad this is like a jungle, where it's not just another desert.
Yeah,
maybe Steven Sommers like, well, I can't have him go through another fucking desert again. We already did that. So I like how they change up the environment and everything. It presents a new set of challenges for them to get to their goal. It's cool. It's a nice change of pace and everything.
Some visual variety in there as well.
Yeah. Well, it goes to what I was saying with my problem, the third one, that they're in China. They're in no location that feels even remotely similar. I agree with you. You can't have them go through the desert again. It'll get boring. But this still feels more exotic than we're in China. We're in the Himalayan mountains. I think the third one should have been they're doing an Aztec mummy, but maybe they thought the jungle would have been redone.
I have to assume that the third one that the Dragon Emperor in question was made up for the movie, right?
Yeah, but it's weird because they use the terracotta warriors.
I just always thought it was a weird thing to put in the title, because it's like Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. I mean, I guess it sounds kind of cool, but it's not really a selling point.
Yeah.
Should have called it The Mummy Forever.
Too fast, too mummious.
The Mummy Resurgence.
Maybe just The Mummy 3.
Just Mummy.
Mummy Resurrection.
Oh God. Well, that would make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the sad part is all of these would have made sense to some degree.
What I think we're basically saying is, hey, Washington football team, get us on your committee to get you a new name. We'll come up with something great.
I'm sure all these names were on the piece of paper the executives were banding about. Or just Steven Sommers just wrote it, and they're like, okay, Mummy was a hit. Whatever you want, Steven.
Yeah.
You get us a new Mummy stock title yesterday.
Well, apparently,
missing from the '60s Spider-Man there,
holding his cigar. Well, apparently, the day after the first one came out, once the numbers came in, the Universal called Steven Sommers, said, "We want you to do another one.
Yeah,
we need another movie." Because the first one saved the studio. We already talked about that in the last discussion, and this one was a hit too. It hence the third movie.
Yeah, but they had a little bit more longer time.
What'd you say, Jacob?
This one, unfortunately, didn't save the studio from embarrassment.
But Yeah, it made its money back, definitely, but I don't think it was quite as big of a hit percentage-wise. It's like how you look at, like, I always use the example of the Halloween movies, that, like, they always made their money back, but it was, like, further diminishing returns when you look by comparison. Like, the first one cost, like, X amount of money, but it made, like, 40 times its budget back, where this is like, oh, well, it made 10 times its budget back. We would have liked it to make more back, though.
I mean, I think this one was a hit.
No,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, it was a hit, but, like, not to the level of, like, the phenomenon it created. It's like how, like, all Jurassic Park 2 and 3 made their money back as well, but, like, it didn't make the percentage increase that the first one did.
Did
Yeah,
it?
it only made.
Did this make more or less money than Jurassic Park 3? I understand I'm asking a question now that nobody in their right mind would know the answer to off the top of their head, but
I will look it up right now.
Mummy Returns made more.
It did?
Hey,
Okay.
good for Mummy Returns.
Made about 100 million more.
Probably, at least in terms of pure blockbuster fun and spectacle, got a little bit, probably a little bit more fulfilling than Jurassic Park 3. And I say that as a guy who really likes Jurassic Park 3 for what it is.
Yeah, audience, Jacob, I don't know if you want me to reveal this, but he has a tattoo of the JP3 logo right on his back. It's crazy. And then a picture of William H. Macy underneath it.
3 slash marks.
Yeah. I was about to say just the 3 slash marks. Well, going back to the box office of the first two, this one only made about 20 million more than the last one worldwide. So usually sequels make a lot more. So, I mean, this was still a hit and everything. It still recovered its budget and everything, but maybe it could have made a little more, but it still did. Yeah. It still did very well.
They weren't yet ready for what The Rock was cooking in 2001.
So basically, well, basically, if
I guess you don't have any professional wrestling fans here.
I got it.
It's okay. I have not. I've never watched wrestling myself. I just know that that's his thing.
Yeah. Well, what I was about to say is, and this is the great thing with Zoom, we keep cutting each other off because of the delay. Is maybe if they had put a little bit more money into the special effects and not make The Rock look so video game quality, like maybe it would have made less money. So if that's where they were trying to cut corners a little bit. But we'll get to that.
I wonder how much The Rock got paid for this movie.
I can't imagine a lot because, like you said, it was his first movie, and like outside of wrestling, did people know who he was? Like, this wasn't, if he were really big, I think this would have been called the Mummy, the Scorpion King, or something like that. But he's not mentioned in it. He's below the title, and that's the thing. He's like the MacGuffin, really, and that's really weird that he then becomes the main boss essentially at the end of this.
I like how you described that The Rock is the MacGuffin of the movie.
I mean, pretty much is. I mean, he's in the first 4 minutes of the movie, has 2 lines, and then, we're like an hour and 15 minutes removed, and they keep mentioning him, but we don't see him, and then he becomes the video game boss at the end. So yes, if The Rock was a much bigger actor at the time, he would have been in this a lot more.
I like how, what was it? Wasn't it on the DVD? We saw like the special feature, the interview with The Rock. And it was great. Like, it looked like it was just like filmed like with like a basic camcorder.
Yeah, like it's very clear they thought about it.
And they're just like, so you're going to be the Scorpion King and the Mummy. He's like, I am.
Yeah, it was very clear they thought of it after the fact. Like, they're like, oh shit, we should put something out here for the DVD.
When did the Scorpion King come out?
I think it came out like 03, 04. It only came out like a short amount of time after this.
It did. It came out in 03.
And then when did the Scorpion King 2, 3, 4, and 5 come out?
2015, 2016, 2007. They probably cranked those shit up. No, they probably came out like late 10s, early teens, I'd say.
Well, someone needs to get on the stat.
I'll put the release schedule up on screen.
Well, thank God. Thank God for you.
Late 10s, early teens?
Yeah, I know. I fucked that up.
The late 10s?
I think the second one probably came out like 2010. Like, I think they came out like there was a bigger gap.
Look, if I'm going to sit through a movie that I don't have nearly as much to say about, I'll make dumb jokes like that, damn it.
Oh, Scorpion King actually came out in '02, so it came out the very
Oh,
next year. Scorpion King 2 came out in '08, then the third one was in 2012, then 2015, then 2018.
oh, you know who the director of the Scorpion King was?
Who?
Rob Reiner.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot
I didn't
about
know
that.
Yeah, Rob Reiner.
Yeah, it was when he was on his career comeback at that point.
He had to make up for doing North somehow.
That's how they got that Kathy Bates cameo in there.
In the Scorpion King.
She's the Scorpion Queen. She's the Rock's wife. I'm reminded of the Lost World here, like when they're in the tall grass and like the faceless henchmen, just literal red shirts this time, are getting pulled under.
Again, you got the little guys there, and it's creative but silly. That's the key phrase for this film.
I mean, it's clever because it's like we're not getting every 5 minutes there's a mummy attack. I know you could technically classify them as mummies the way they're preserved and they're dead or whatever, but like it's still something new that we're gonna get, that we have. I love though it's very hard to notice. I've only noticed it once or twice, but in the upcoming scene when they cross the log bridge and then Rick blows it up to stop the pygmies from, as they're called, from chasing them any further, he blows up the log bridge. You can notice one of the pygmies like holding on to the log and straddling it and doing like what Slim Whitman did at the end of Doctor Strangelove, riding the bomb down. I thought that's a nice little touch. And then drowning these guys in the quicksand. Because again, you now need to, in a few moments he's going to die as well. You need to whittle down this large army, as we saw. Like, okay, why aren't they helping out? Why aren't they more threats? Like, okay, we have to come up with a reason why all these henchmen are dead now. And I know they could have had a much smaller group of henchmen with them, but I think this is an effective way. It's an action scene that they're, as you saw, Rick and Ardith Bay are just running through for the most part, like until they have to fight this guy. Like they're just like literally running through, ignoring most of the action, trying to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And it's just nice. It's like, this is how we whittle the army down. We have a cool action scene that our heroes are also involved in, but like they're also trying to fight their way out of.
Yeah.
I like this guy being like, sacrifice yourselves for me. Just, again, shows you how sniveling all these bad guys really are.
It's very self-serving.
And that's the thing. It's like, I think the museum curator, going back to the whole Anoxina Moon's like human, like reincarnation form, she should have been like, just like, not involved initially as just like another nameless henchman of like modern day person. Like that's like the shame where we don't get nearly as much with the museum curator as we probably should. But
well, I'm sure it goes into much greater depth in the novelization of the film by Peter David.
I've always wanted, I want to get into those like junior novelizations and read more. Like I just picked up like a couple copies of like the Blair Witch Project did like a comic book series that went deeper into it, because I'm just very interested. It's like what's the expanded canon here? Like what are you going to add in that the movie makers felt we don't need to have in?
Plus, you need to scrounge the children's section of Barnes & Noble to pick up the junior novelizations.
Exactly. They're still there. They just never sold, and they just still kept them on the shelf. So some kids are like, oh, a book about the mummy, the Tom Cruise. Oh, no. I always love this bit. He's like, well, we're safe here. These stones will protect us. And then so, sorry, my mistake.
The Tom Cruise mummy feels like older than this one somehow, even though this is like the 90s franchise.
This movie is
it fell off the radar that fast.
Hey, I think it's just a testament to I think it's just a testament to these two movies.
And again, like that moment there, just like him being like, sorry, my mistake. It's just a very Jonathan moment that is fucking, I always laugh at that moment. That is one of my favorite jokes in the movie. Dynamite solves everything. Yeah, you can see one of them here. It's that one that's on the top. It's kind of like riding it down. And that's supposed to be an homage to Doctor Strangelove. That's very clearly the visual effects animators having fun.
Very
Now
playful.
this scene always
That's like a fun little detail, though. I like that.
The scene always reminded me of The Happening, and I don't want to compare this movie to it, but just the idea that you're outrunning light here. It's like, I get it, like it has to crest over because they're in a valley, but it's always very funny to me. It's like you're outrunning the sunlight, in The Happening, you're out trying to outrun the wind.
See, it works here because you understand the emotional stakes and you're invested within the characters, so you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about, them getting to out of the sunlight.
Yeah.
In The Happening, it just sucks.
Yeah, it also works here because it's like you understand that, and even though geographically speaking, it didn't make much sense. Like at the beginning, you don't see him in a valley. Now they're in a hidden valley, so it kind of makes sense. Where it's like, okay, the sun is cresting over it, but now
I think it's Happening is a great comparison. That movie was so silly.
Yeah. Now we should discuss here the fake out spoilers. Death of the Evie character. Funny story with this. When I was in college, I was showing this to mine and Jacob's former roommate when we were in college, and he had never seen this movie. He knew about the third one. He knew that Rachel Weisz was not in it, and he accurately knew that she had been recast. So when we see this, and Evelyn gets stabbed and she dies, he actually looked at me. He's like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "They're gonna bring her back," and I'm just like trying to be straight faced. Like, "No, she's dead." And he's like, "Didn't you know that's why she's not in the third one?" He's like, "I just thought they recast her." I'm like, "No, she's dead." He's like, "Oh my god, this movie! I can't believe it had the balls to kill her off." And
that was very, very intense of The Mummy Returns.
Yeah, well, and I know some people do complain about like it's a Howl moment that like they kill her and then 2 minutes later they bring her back to life, and like I wonder how many people. Yeah, I mean, as a little kid, I truly did believe she was dead, even though the fucking Book of the Dead was literally just flashed before us as she waves. But it's like I think it's. I don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of people say, because I think it does heighten the emotional stakes. It shows how much more evil a Nox on the Moon, who we really didn't get much characterization of her in the first one, and even in this one. Remember, until the resurrection, that's not her. That's just a woman who happens to look like her. So we don't get much of how evil is a Nox on the Moon here. You see in the first one, she's okay with him stabbing the pharaoh, but like this shows that she's pure evil, and it raises the stake. Because for the majority of the climax, Rick is going in thinking, my wife is dead, I need to avenge her. So I think it works out very well from both of those angles of raising the stakes for him and then showing how evil she is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is there, I mean, you guys have to remind me, is there like a real consequence to bringing her back to life?
No, not at all. She's perfectly fine. I remember like reading on IMDb forums, people were like, well, why is she brought back? And, does she have to regenerate? And, it's like, no, the Book of the Dead, just brings you back to life as you are. She doesn't have to do anything special because, it's not, she didn't become a mummy. She's not been dead for thousands of years. So it was like, I guess in theory, her wound just magically healed and she's perfectly fine. Now it would be funny at the end, like, Evie, you're back. It's like, yeah, I embraced the cold, world of death. There's nothing after death. It's just pitch darkness. It's horrifying. I never want to go back to that. That would have been funny. Maybe she's like got PTSD in the third one, but no, there were no consequences really.
And see, that's a little cheap.
I think, yeah, like I said, I think it works for what they need to do, but yeah, maybe I think the book of the Dead is lost after this, so it's like it is completely gone now. So well, why don't they use that again afterwards? It's like, okay, death is now permanent again. The book is permanent.
Well, I guess compare it to like the ending of like something like The Last Crusade, where there's like a ticking clock over whether Indiana Jones' father is going to die, but he hasn't died yet, and they have to get to the thing before he dies. There's ways to do that without eliminating the consequence of death.
I agree.
Who doesn't? Where they don't back out of a female protagonist's death. Van Helsing.
You're right. They don't. We'll get to that, but that's actually a very
She
good
gets killed, and that's that. She ain't coming back.
I just
like the end, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the end.
Yeah, I guess spoil that movie.
Yeah, I want to point out though, another Indiana Jones comparison to this movie as he goes through and the scorpions are moving away. It's very much like in Crystal Skull when like they have the skull and it's moving the ants away. So Spielberg ripped this off for Catch Me If You Can, and he also ripped this off for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So come on, Steven, be original, you fucking hack.
Wait, which part is this in Crystal Skull?
We were talking over, but the curator, he walks into the room and there's millions of scorpions, but now that he has the bracelet on, the scorpions are moving away from him. So it always reminded me.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. With the ants.
That adds up because I was watching Crystal Skull the other day.
So
were you?
I was.
That must have been a new experience.
It is every time.
That's all right. I was watching The Phantom Menace earlier today, so.
Oh, all right.
I only watched the Coruscant scenes.
Hey, Jacob, do you want that to be the commentary we do after the Van Helsing? Would that make you happy? Would that fill you with life?
Is it Phantom Menace?
The only two things that fill me with life anymore are Spider-Man 3 and Bionicle, and we're through those, so I've pretty much retired as far as I'm concerned from the life.
Jacob's just to be a very minor participant from all future ones.
It's also 84 degrees where I am right now, but that's okay. Let's keep going. Brendan Fraser's fighting a guy.
Don't worry, we only have 30 more minutes.
We haven't gotten to The Rock yet. We're about to.
We're only 15 minutes tops away from him, I think. I'm trying to think of how long the Scorpion fight scene takes.
See, if they did the reboot, like the Force Awakens reboot, like I suggested before, then he could actually have the punch.
Exactly. Burp.
So I read this on IMDb, so take it with a grain of salt, but to keep, with Arnold Vosloo, to keep his back smooth and hairless, he just shaved all the time instead of waxing because it was too painful for him. I just thought that was an interesting piece of trivia that everyone should know. I just like to imagine Arnold Vosloo in pain just during the making of all these movies.
That's why he's like, no, I'm not coming back for a third one. I can't handle it.
No.
Well, that's the thing. And I was watching a video where they were talking about some guy was shirtless in it, from the movie, and same thing. He has no body hair. And the guy, and I was very much the same way. Some guy was talking about, he's because of movies where they always show guys not having body hair, no back hair or chest hair. I thought I was a fucking freak when I started going through puberty and chest hair. He's like, no, never had seen it before.
Well, we know Arnold Vosloo is just the epitome of masculinity.
Could you imagine, though, if they had to do that to Robin Williams? He was the mummy, and to keep waxing. He'd be like the damn wolf man, transitioning throughout the day. They have to just wax him 5 times a day.
You guys ever seen the movie World's Greatest Dad?
Yeah.
The ending there when he skinny dips in the pool.
Oh, that's something I never needed to see, but great.
Great movie.
Great movie. I didn't need to see Robin Williams naked, though.
Well, that's what we would have seen in The Mummy.
Died. I actually watched that the day after he died because someone was talking about it.
Yeah, I think I did too. Not the day after, but a little after he died, I watched that.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before. I'd just seen the kid from Spy Kids who plays his son posted a couple on-set pictures, and then a few Facebook friends of mine were saying that's one of their favorite movies of his. And I'm like, I'd never heard of it. It's great. Maybe we'll do a comp. No, we're not going to. It'd be too sad. I do we got the brief scene of showing the demons underneath, setting that up when they almost fall in, and then it's nice actually seeing the two of these fight on even ground because obviously throughout the movies he's got his magic powers, and as soon as in the first movie he loses his powers, Rick just stabs him because they forget that he's mortal, or he doesn't realize he's mortal now. So it's actually nice to see the two of these fighting on even ground now.
So they just punch each other?
Yeah. Well, Rick doesn't have his guns anymore. He doesn't have his power, so now they're in just hand-to-hand combat.
Oh yeah, I know.
So it's nice to see that's like, Arnold Vosloo's mummy isn't just completely dependent on his magic powers. That he is a muscular guy who could probably beat the shit out of me. Even now, he could probably still beat the shit out of me. But nice that he's not just completely nerfed now. Yeah, he's not like a complete like non-threat for the rest of the movie.
Well, we have, for the record, we do have Arnold Vosloo's agents in our ear telling us to mention that Arnold Vosloo is muscular every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And
we'll do that in all
only to jokingly reference the paunch joke that he made that one time. Yeah.
Of course, just to show how far he's come.
Yeah.
In those 2 years.
See, this is awesome.
A bunch of faceless guys fighting the same dog army guy repeated, like copy and pasted a million times.
I love where giant armies just charge at each other without strategy.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
It is great.
Well, we care, though, here at least because you have Ardith Bay. It's not just like,
If we're gonna talk about caring versus not caring with big army fights, you do care a little bit about the Gungans, okay?
That's true.
You don't want to see Jar Jar or what's the other guy's name? Captain Tarples get killed.
Oh.
Tarples.
Oh, you can see the influence on Matrix had come out in between the first movie and this movie, where we're briefly getting bullet time every now and then here.
Good observation. That wasn't in the last one.
Interesting.
Yeah. But again, imagine this as a stunt show at Universal. It would have been great.
This would have been, yeah, absolutely.
There's actually, I'll have to try and find the name of it and send the footage to you guys. I've been digitizing my family's home movies, and my mom shot some stunt show at Disney that's very much like the swashbuckling 1930s fighting pirates and zombies, and I'm just now watching and thinking about that. It could have worked. Also, I like the little nod to the first one where Jonathan couldn't remember what that symbol was, and Alex does the same weird arm flapping motions being like it's a bird, and now that's the one thing Jonathan remembers from the last time around. It's a nice nod, and I think it's a funny joke. He's like, I remember that.
Yeah, that's his character development. Him remembering something for the last
the sole character development.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. Now Evie is going to be back. She's resurrected. She's seeing what becomes from the other side of the wall of life and death and is permanently scarred from it.
So she's just become a nihilist.
That, again, they should have had her have PTSD in the third one. She's just chain smokes. Nothing fucking matters. The third one, imagine if they do that. And Jonathan's killed. She's it doesn't matter. She turns into Dr. Manhattan from the Zack Snyder Watchmen. It's life, death, it has no meaning. There's no difference between a living and dead person. They're chemically the same. That would have been her.
She came back wrong. That should have been the third movie.
Yeah. Now imagine
it's not really Evie. Would have been kind of interesting. Maybe it wasn't Evie's soul, because remember.
It was the resurrected Pharaoh's daughter.
Yeah, well, it's like when Imhotep first sees Anaximon, and he says, well, in body, but not in soul. What if that happened to Evie? Because, Jacob, you're talking about consequences. Yeah. That could have been a consequence.
She could have still been dead at the end of it, but they get to say goodbye to her, kind of. That would have been interesting, but...
Maybe it's like Gamora in Endgame or something. It's not quite her.
I think it needed to be something like that. I think there should be a consequence.
Yeah.
There's this actual interesting YouTube channel. I'm blanking on their name. I'll link it in here. But they're special effects people, and they're primarily known for making movies R-rated, Willy Wonka and Avengers. But they did a interesting project where they tried to fix the CGI of the Scorpion King, and it's actually amazing what they were able to do with that movie, just ripping a Blu-ray and then adding elements over an already existing movie. So I highly recommend it.
To which I saw that and I said, why would you want to change this? This is so wonderful.
It's
That's
not
half
as
the
bad as
fun.
people say, but it's definitely not perfect. Let's put it that way.
It looks like it's like those WrestleMania games you get on the PS2. It looks like they took Dwayne Johnson's model from that and just stuck it on the Scorpion monster.
Yeah. Could you imagine if you played like the PS1 version of this game? Because I know there was a tie-in game that I always wanted to play. They had like a trailer for it on this.
In the
But like
in
you play it, and it's like, oh, it looks even better in the video game. That's weird.
in the movie The Scorpion King. So is the Scorpion King like a villain? How does that work?
Wait, in his spinoff?
Yeah, is he like a bad guy still, or like how does that work?
I think he's
No,
a
that
good
well,
guy.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, he's the good guy. That's what
That.
makes it. Yeah, that's what makes it a little confusing. And I mean, only if you've seen Scorpion King, I guess. But yeah, he's the protagonist in that movie. He's the straight up hero.
See,
Yeah, because
I view ignore. I
he's
just
pretty
ignore.
much like an irrevocably evil force of nature at the end of this.
I mean, he's
He's
not
like a
even a character. He's not even a
giant
character now.
monster.
The version of the Scorpion King we see at the beginning. I mean, this might as well be like a brainless monster. He doesn't talk. He just grunts. You know, it's a mindless creature.
But I guess he's a likable protagonist in the next movie.
Yeah. Well, and because all those movies are prequels, because I'm presuming takes place before he died, so he becomes an asshole. That could have actually been interesting, like doing a thing. No, see, the one thing I will say here is this fight seems to hold no consequence for me because, as you saw, he wasn't actually injured by the sword hitting him; it just like turned to dust. So I always viewed it as the Scorpion King's army has been risen because he's alive, but they're not effective until someone's able to take control of it. So that entire scene to me has always been pointless because it's not. You could argue maybe because the army had been defeated, that last one didn't have strength, but it's like you never see any of his men are dead prior to that, and now it seemed like this is actually where there's going to be consequence for them. So I've always thought that part was a little weak to say. I'm going to insert clips of you saying I agree to make it sound like you agreed with me.
I was distracted by the incoming second wave of giant Egyptian zombie monsters.
Yeah. And it's very weird that they gave him a reprieve at all, and it's like immediately taken away. It's like should have continued, but I don't know.
Well, I like the idea of escalating it in a way where it shows that you think it's over, but it's not.
I don't think they should have had the celebration. I think they should have been like, it could have been like, look, the numbers are turning to our side, and then you see more coming over versus they completely defeated them. And I guess you could argue a lot of his men are dying, but this being not a hard R movie couldn't show hundreds of dead bodies in the ground. It doesn't look like there are less people with him, but I don't know. So,
Well, plus it's just the matter of the nature of the movie too. It's like, is it that type of movie to show all those dead bodies?
Well, and that's the thing. It's like I never get to me. I've never gotten the idea of like how much of a threat are they? Like, why did that guy's sword turn to sand when it hit him? Like, are they actually a threat right now? Is this like 90% of his army is wiped out and this is all that stuff? Because they show like he's got like a huge fucking army with him in the previous scene, and now it's like several hundred guys. So it's like, okay, did like most of them die? That's to me again, maybe is seeing this movie multiple times. It's a weak spot, but where it gets illuminated. But
so right here is when The Rock had food poisoning.
That's
you just hear like a farting and him be like, "Oh."
why they had to change it to the CGI version of The Rock, because the real one was sick in the medical tent right now.
Oh God.
Well, they tried to get him in that rig with the scorpion, but he just kept shitting in it. Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Oh, that's perfect. I'm sorry, we got to end the commentary on that. That's it.
I do have to say, how unfair is this that like apparently you need this scepter to kill the Scorpion King, but it was in fucking Hamunaptra apparently, because that's where it's like they said he got it from. I think because like it was part of the treasures they got in the first movie. It's like, Oh, so had Jonathan not been like someone who loves money and kept that with him, they can't defeat the bad guy. Also, since that just passed through fire, I really wish when Rick grabs it, you just hear like sizzling and him being like, my hands.
You know, Was, you were talking about how like he seems like just like sort of a disconnected giant monster at this point that's mindless. I think a good way to connect him, maybe if like he came out and he was just the Rock, and then in front of them turned into this scorpion monster to fight them. Maybe that would have been a good way of connecting him with the character from the beginning of the movie and making it all one cohesive thing. Because as it is, it does just feel like sort of like a big disconnected monster.
Yeah. Now, and that could have been a thing where he was like, "Are you here to serve with me, or like, are you here to be with me or against me?" And then they're like, against you or whatever. And he's like, oh, "Okay, have it your way."
Or you could make
Exactly.
Or you could have done like a trick where maybe he's like very affable. He's got that like Rock personality where you think he's like the good guy, but he's actually going to trick them.
Yeah.
Rick,
Something like that. Yeah.
You with me or you against me? All right, buddy, let's take over Egypt.
Oh, Rick, you want to take 3 steps back right now?
Yeah. Now, getting into the part of this movie that completely redeems any and all problems I have with it. I'm quite serious. Like, rewatching this multiple times, like any problems I have immediately go away in the next like 2 minutes of the movie. Specifically with Imhotep's death and the parallel to Rick being saved. The whole thing we said in the first movie is Imhotep is doing this for love. He went to hell, went through god awful torture and all this shit to bring his lost love back, and he's going to destroy the world in the first one. Even if it means bringing her back, he's fine with that. This one they kind of nerf him a little bit now, as we said. Imhotep or Nox in the Moon is back. So, okay, what's the next thing he wants? But like, it did feel slightly out of character for me, always watching this. But this moment coming up here when he sees Evie willing to sacrifice herself despite Rick being like, get out of here, that her love for him is strong enough that even she's not going to listen to him and come and save him, versus what we'll see in a moment of a Nox in the Moon. He's begging her to come. So he's being selfish. She's like, risk your life to help me. And then she flat out refuses. And you just see like the sorrow in his face that he realized he went through all these thousands of years of torture and all this effort for nothing. And that like kind of like depressed look on his face is just so powerful to me. I think it's a very good acting on Arnold Vosloo. And like, it really ties up any problems I have with it. It's a very nice character moment and is a good conclusion to Imhotep. I am glad they didn't bring him back from the third, because this is a perfect ending for him. Like right here, like this is great acting. He just looks so destroyed.
That's a good point about how that's all structured at the end there.
And now
or they just had a child that they didn't want to orphan. Unlike Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz, they didn't care as much.
Well, that's cool because he just let go of them.
He's like, it was all for nothing. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't get dragged.
And as much as I wanted like a more Egyptian type feel to the third one, I'm glad they didn't bring Imhotep back, because it's like, that's the perfect ending. And the first one, he's like, I'll be back. Death is just the beginning. I'll be back. Versus this one, he's like, I'm not coming back. I don't care. I don't want to be brought back. This is done. So that's what I was referring to. This movie is not perfect.
Went from a 7 out of 10
to 11
to a 20 out of 10. I was going to say 20.
I also like the little elements. You can see occasionally, you see one of the pygmies flying past camera being sucked in. This also reminded me of the end of Jumanji, which is very ironic now with The Rock in the new Jumanji movies.
Actually, this gives me some Kingdom of the Crystal Skull vibes too.
Oh, you're right. God, Steven Spielberg really ripped this movie off.
Or is George Lucas?
Well, to be fair, they ripped off a lot of elements from Indiana Jones, so I guess it's payback. You ripped us off, we'll rip you off.
My best George Lucas. We're trying to do it like The Mummy Returns, but we really want to push it in a new direction.
Well, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
It's one of those things that these things just eventually feed off each other over the years, especially with the fourth one because it's so far along since the last one. A lot of movies have been influenced by the other three, so it's harder to, you know, for it to be as unique.
I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. I think the fourth Indiana Jones is underappreciated.
Yes,
but I feel like this comes up once per commentary. So, you know,
oh, that's not enough in my book.
But I kind of attribute it. I think in retrospect, we'll look back at some of the odder ideas in that movie, like the alien stuff, and kind of see it more as like sort of creative vision. But I guess that's a conversation for another time.
I agree with that. I said that the other day when I watched it.
Oh.
Kind of like how we look at the prequels, and we're sort of like we appreciate the storytelling in them a lot more now, versus in the heat of the moment when they came out.
I'm telling you, man, once that fifth indie movie comes out, if it ever gets made, that's what's going to happen. If they do what they've been doing with the Star Wars movies. But that's another conversation.
Again, we also just
talked the scene that looks like something from Crystal Skull wraps up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, a perfect Jonathan moment. He's like, pull me up, and then sees the diamond. He's like, no, let me down. Is it worth? And like Rick says, is that diamond worth dying for? He's like, yes, and he's just hugging it in the background. Like, it's perfect. Like, they're all happy to be alive, having their family back, and he's just happy that he has a fucking huge ass diamond that's worth like $1 billion.
Yeah, he gets what he wants.
Again, just money. Nothing ever comes out of this for him. And they said, like, I think on the commentary or something, they were talking about how, like, he bickers with Alex. Like, he's almost on the same maturity level as Alex. Like, when the parents kiss, they both say, ugh, like, they're both groaning at it. Like, they're both children. It's perfect. And like you said, like, Jonathan learns nothing from the first movie or even the second movie because it's the same in the third one. So since you said you want to know what heaven looks like, I guess the Christian religion is right. Which is very ironic since they use an Egyptian book.
Now look at this. 2 hours on the dot. That's the end.
Yep.
It's perfect.
And then 10 minutes of credits.
Yeah, about.
We're not going to do that. So, well, hope you guys enjoyed our return to form with The Mummy Returns. We all had various different things to say. We laughed, we cried. Our Zoom meetings ended 3 different times in this. So, yay.
Yeah, thanks for watching for part 2 of Steven Summers.
Yeah.
Summers.
Next time we're doing Jake's favorite movie of all time, Van Helsing.
I was here too.
Thanks for dropping on by, Jacob.
Thanks for giving me 2 hours to nap. I appreciate it. No, I find I actually, the first movie's better, but this one's just a lot of fun in a schlocky way. So There you go.
Well, I'm glad it was worth your heat stroke.
Yes, it's 85 degrees and there's no AC where I am right now. So
Well,
I look forward to 10 more minutes of credits.
No, we won't do that to you.
Okay, we're gonna sign off, guys. Until then, have a good night.
Yep. Have a good night.